Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we are finally going over the results of my themed Letterboxd 4 series for the month of February, which was romance films. Now, if you're new to this series, this video is going to be in a playlist with all the other episodes I've done. There should be 14 different categories at this point that I've done, so you can go back and look at any of those. But if you are new to this series, basically all this is just, again, for those last 14 months, each month I've taken a look at a different group or category or genre or whatever it is. I've taken a different category and I've broken it down into, in that specific category, what would my Letterboxd 4 be for that theme. And so, we've done like Black History Month, we've done horror films, we've done comedies, we've done animated, done Best Picture winner. Like, there's a whole lot of different categories. You can go and watch all of those. Now, usually in this series, toward the beginning of the month, I do the introduction video, the preview video, and that's where we announce what the category is, and then I give you what my current Letterboxd 4 is, plus 6 other films that I'm going to watch that month, and then I watch a whole lot more than that, but I just, that's kind of the base 10 that I'm guaranteeing I'm going to watch. And then in this video is the results video, where I talk about every single film that I watched in the month that fits that category, and then we decide what is that final Letterboxd 4 of that specific genre. And then also, one thing to remember when going over these results here is the rules and the exclusions. So the rules, it's simple. It's just that romance had to be kind of like one of the top 2 genres, I would say, of the film. And for the exclusions, I do have a rule where if a film is ever used in a previous Letterboxd 4 video, it's ineligible going forward, because at the end of the year I want there to be 48 different films, and so at the end of this year I want there to be 96 different films that we talk about. So some of the films that were excluded from this video are The Apartment, Love and Basketball, Brokeback Mountain, Desert Hearts, Portrait of a Lady on Fire, Little Women, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, The Big Sick, and Hamnet. And without further ado, let's take a look at the films that missed the cut. Eternity. Our main trio of actors all give great performances, but it's Elizabeth Olsen who stars and anchors the film. I wish the film made me as emotional as I've seen it make others, but it didn't quite go deep enough for me. Materialists. I was disappointed to see how many people didn't like this film, because I loved it, and it's one of my favorite films of last year. Johnson, Evans, and Pascal all have beautiful performances that moved me, and Celine Song has cemented herself as one of my favorite filmmakers. Honora. Kind of an odd film to call a romance, but while the film is in its romance bag, it excels. While I like the rest of the film as well, this is one that I like, but not love. Oh Hi. I knew nothing about this besides Molly Gordon and Logan Lerman as the leads, so I had a blast with the absurd premise. As the film mainly centered in one room, it could have gone sideways quick, but all of the performances were top-notch and kept the film riveting. Regretting You. I like all the actors individually, and think they all give good performances here. My issue with the film is the screenplay, but I recognize that I'm not exactly the target audience here, and can understand why others would like it. Palm Springs. Truthfully, this is probably the film that just missed the final Letterboxd 4. It's highlighted by the snappy dialogue and humor, but it's the heart Kristen Milioti brings to the film that really brings it home. Wuthering Heights. I admittedly know nothing about the Emily Bronte novel, so I don't know what all has changed in this film, but I can't imagine this was an accurate adaptation. There are some moments that did work for me, but at the end of the day, it didn't win me over. La La Land. I've always liked the film, but this was the watch that took it from like to love for me. I know it's not for everyone, but I absolutely love the gut punch ending. Song Sung Blue. The highlight of the film for me, as it seems to be for everyone, is the great performance from Kate Hudson. The rest of the film has its highs and lows, both in terms of moments in the film and overall quality of the film. Before Sunset. I've always had this as a tier below Sunrise, and while I still view them that way, this watch puts them on the same tier. Has all the charm in the mundane conversations that the first one has, but the final scene of this film might be my favorite scene in the whole trilogy. Casablanca. Due to the number of times this film has been referenced in other movies, I already knew how it would end, but I still enjoyed the journey along the way. I was caught off guard by how many iconic lines are from this film that I didn't know were. Pride and Prejudice. I had a blast with the Oscar-nominated Jane Austen's period drama, so I took that as a sign to finally cross this off the watch list. Keira Knightley is so charming in this, and the rest of the cast shine as well. The Notebook. When I was a kid, I walked into the living room while my parents were watching this, and I had never seen a movie that made them this emotional. While the film didn't make me that emotional, I was still moved and found a lot of beauty in the story. 500 Days of Summer. This has been one of my most anticipated for my watch list for a long time, but it unfortunately didn't live up to the hype I had for it. While I didn't always like the characters, Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Zooey Deschanel had great chemistry, and I liked the creative choices made with the non-linear storytelling. The Worst Person in the World. Renata Reinsve is breathtaking in this, and charmed me throughout. Joachim Trier and Escovut's script is full of heart and sorrow, and I can't wait to watch what they do together next after this and Sentimental Value. When Harry Met Sally. I went in thinking I knew very little about this film, but I didn't realize how many classic scenes and reference moments came from this film. Meg Ryan and Billy Crystal have amazing chemistry, and I look forward to diving into more of Rob Reiner's work. The Artist. I love the bold narrative of this story, and can appreciate the risk. It ultimately didn't connect with me, but I know it did for so many people, especially in the Academy. In the Mood for Love. I 100% owe this another watch in the future, because it didn't work for me on the first watch, but I really wanted it to. The film does have excellent cinematography, and I loved the score. Cinema Paradiso. A beautiful film that I can easily see why so many film lovers love. The film is phenomenally shot, with great characters, and I can't wait to watch this again. Sleepless in Seattle. It's surprising how well this worked for me when there is a character whose entire plotline bugged me. There's so many great options, so it's impossible to rank, but this may be up there as one of my favorite Tom Hanks performances. Rye Lane. This was my introduction to David Johnson, and I have been a massive fan of his career ever since. His chemistry with Vivian Oparah and the Before Trilogy-style script work incredibly well and won me over. You've Got Mail. Hard to say whether I like this more or less than Sleepless in Seattle, but I will say I like how there are more scenes with both Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks together, so we can see their chemistry. The film is a charming time capsule of a period right before my time. Pretty Woman. At this point I shouldn't be, but I'm still caught off guard by how charming every classic romance film I've watched this month was. I knew she would, but Julia Roberts really steals the show here. Now before we get into the final Letterboxd 4, there is one film that left from the preview video, so let's take a look at that one. Her. This is the second time this film started a month in the Letterboxd 4, but fell out by the end. I still really enjoy the film, but I'm realizing I don't love it the way that I thought I did. I do love how beautiful and emotional the film is, with great acting from top to bottom. And without further ado, let's take a look at that final Letterboxd 4. About Time. The night after another unsatisfactory New Year's party, Tim's father tells his son that the men in his family have always had the ability to travel through time. They can't change history, but they can change what happens, and has happened, in their own lives. Thus begins the start of a lesson in learning to appreciate life itself as it is, as it comes, and most importantly, the people living alongside us. About Time was released in 2013 and was directed by Richard Curtis. The film stars Donald Gleason, Rachel McAdams, and Bill Nighy. Now, I'm not saying that this is my favorite of these four, or out of all of the other films that I've talked about, but I will say this was the one, like, my favorite watch of the month, because it's a film that I saw once years ago. I think it was, like, a friend recommended it one time, and it was, like, the first time I'd ever heard about the film, and so I remember watching it years ago, and really enjoying it, like really getting emotionally swept up in it, and all of a sudden just being like, wow, this really worked for me. And this was definitely at a period in my life where like romance films weren't like really my vibe. It's not what I was watching. At that point I was really watching just comedy and horror, and so it really kind of caught me off guard by how much I loved it. But again, that was years. That probably would have been like, so this came out in 2013, it might have been like 2017, 2018 maybe, when I saw it. And so this is the first watch since then, and I had forgotten the majority of the film. And so, I mean, I guess I should say I forgot the majority. I remember the plot, and I remember some kind of pivotal moments, but I forgot about a lot of the mundane things, the simple conversations between Domhnall Gleeson and Rachel McAdams, and their characters, the way that they just... Again, just the simple conversations. The blind date scene, I had completely forgotten about that. That was a blast. I'd forgotten about, I think it's Vanessa Kirby, right, is her Rachel McAdams' friend, like her whole character. I forgot about her plot. Surprisingly, I had kind of forgotten about the sister character, even though I remembered the thing that happens toward the end of the film. I didn't remember it was his sister, But there was a lot of these characters and stuff that I had just kind of forgotten about, and so it was really fun watching this film and just experiencing it all again, almost as if it was for the first time, because it was just the first time since, kind of forgetting a lot of it. So I just was kind of swept up in a lot of that. And then I remember being emotional the first time I saw this, 8 years ago, 9, however long it's been. I didn't remember bawling. And this film, absolutely, on this watch, this is the film by far that I cried the hardest at it. There's a lot of these where they're kind of sweet, like The Notebook, like, I know a lot of people kind of cry at that. I was kind of, emotional, but it didn't quite, maybe my eyes watered a little bit, but it didn't quite get me. I was ugly crying in watching About Time. And I don't want to say what exactly about the scene got to me, but there is a scene at the very end with Domhnall Gleeson and his father, Bill Nighy's character, and they're kind of reminiscing about something from way earlier when he was just a little kid, and the water wells, like, just broke. I lost it. I was crying so hard. And this film also, I mentioned this in a couple of my Oscar videos when I was talking about Nick Cave's song in Train Dreams. I wasn't like, I thought I wasn't familiar with it, and I still, at that time wasn't super familiar. I have since gone and listened to a couple of his albums, but I wasn't super familiar with Nick Cave. And but I really like that song in Train Dreams, and then the song that Bill Nighy's character asks them to play of his in this film. All of a sudden, it's just like he's got such a unique and like powerful voice, and his songs they get to me, they speak to me emotionally, and so I think that also kind of helped aid in a little bit of the emotion. But it really is that kind of that flashback scene toward the end of the film that just absolutely got me this time with this film. It's just very beautiful. It's charming. It's happy. It's sad. It's one of those romance films that really brings everything to the table. It's not just like a pure romance to where like if you don't like romance films, you're not going to like this film. Like this film offers so much in terms of everything. And yeah, the romance is the highlight of it, but I think there's so much that can really just kind of win almost anyone over with this film. I truly love it. Before Sunrise. An unexpected meeting on a train leads two travelers to spend an evening wandering through Vienna. As the night unfolds, they share stories and conversations about life and love, exploring new ideas, while a quiet intimacy grows between them, knowing it may be their only night together. Before Sunrise was released in 1995 and was directed by Richard Linklater. The film stars Ethan Hawke, Julie Delpy, and Andrea Eckert. And this is a really interesting film in the sense that I saw this for the first time not that long ago. It was fairly recently was the first time that I saw this film. But at the same time, it feels like this is a film that I've known for years and years, and like it feels like I've been a fan of this since I was a kid. But it's like I really was only a couple years ago that I saw it for the first time. It was when I was doing my Richard Linklater ranked video that's on the channel. I'll go ahead and I'll put the link to that in the video or in the description of this video. But it was during that video, it was like the first time that I went and watched all of Linklater's filmography, and I knew that the Before trilogy, I'd heard so many people talk about it, so many people that, like, some of my friends that I totally respect their movie opinions, like, they have loved this for so long, so I always knew that this was, like, a film and a trilogy as a whole that I was going to like. I didn't realize that I was going to be so captured by it and just absolutely in love with it. And it's an interesting film in the sense that, like, if you don't know anything about this film, the basic plot is, again, it's what I just said, but it's these two characters, they meet on a train, and then they say, like, hey, let's get off this train, and then they walk around and they talk for a while, and then they sit down and talk for a while, and then they get up and walk around and talk for a while, then they sit at a restaurant and they sit and talk for a while, and, like, it's an entire film that is just dialogue between two characters walking and talking, and, like, and this is the first film where it's not like there's any real actual romantic chemistry between, like, in the sense of, like, they haven't been together. It's not like they're a couple and, like, they're talking like couples. It's the kind of the yearning phase. It is you just met this stranger, you're enamored by them, you're trying to understand them more, and so the entire time it's this conversation that at times gets a little flirty, but for a lot of it is just simple conversations, and it's simple, like, what do you think about this, what's your opinion on this, like, they dive into politics, or they dive into this, and they just, whatever the random topic is, they talk about, the guy that's writing the poetry. You get the contrast of the characters, where you see that Ethan Hawke's a little bit more cynical, and Julie Delpy's character is a little bit more optimistic and believes in the good, and and so you get, like, this interesting clash of these two characters and the different ways that they interpret or view things, and somehow it becomes so romantic, the way that, like, they have these differences of opinions, but you can tell they're both really interested in each other. And then as the film goes on, kind of when you're in, like, the second and third act, when they start getting a little bit more flirty and a little bit more, the romance really kind of kicks in, it just becomes so beautiful to me. And this is one of those films I really wish that I was, I guess technically I was alive, but I wish I was old enough to have seen this in 1995, because I would have loved to have seen the ending of this film and, like, not known what the future, like, of these characters are. This film is, if you have seen Desert Hearts, it kind of has a similar end to Desert Hearts. I mean, really similar, where one of the characters is getting on a train and leaving. And somehow, both of those films, I think, really capture the beauty and, like, and they do it in different ways, but they capture the beauty of kind of this final moment of maybe this is goodbye forever. In Desert Hearts, she gets on the train, and so, it's still kind of potentially goodbye forever, but it's like at least she's stealing a couple more minutes. This film, it kind of ends with that moment of like, this could be it. This could be it forever. And so I would have loved to have like seen this in 1995 and just really got to know what the reaction would have been like, of feeling that yearning and feeling that romance and being like, oh, I really hope that they do get back together, without knowing that there was two other films coming. Because, once I knew there was two other films, I knew they were going to get back together. But I really would have loved to have kind of had that ending end that way, because I think I would have loved it even more. It's just kind of like a, or maybe it would have helped me really love, Sunset and Midnight a little bit better. But I mean, it really is just a beautiful cap to the film. Just a beautiful film. The film that made me really truly love Richard Linklater and this style, because he has so many other films that are like this. Blue Moon, this year nominated for Ethan Hawke for Best Actor at the Oscars. Like for Richard Linklater, it's a film that is kind of a similar sense of, it's just Ethan Hawke talking, the entire time. And I don't think I would have liked that film, Blue Moon, if I didn't love the Before trilogy, if I didn't love Richard Linklater's style, if I just wasn't like a big fan of him already. And this was really the film that just made me a big fan of, again, not just Richard Linklater, but Ethan Hawke more so as an actor. Julie Delpy is someone that I really haven't seen other than in this, but she is the highlight in these films to me. She is so charming and so fun and energetic. Like, this is just, to me, it's a complete film. I absolutely love it. Past Lives. After decades apart, childhood friends Nora and Hai Sung are reunited in New York for one fateful weekend as they confront notions of destiny, love, and the choices that make a life. The film was nominated for Best Picture and Best Original Screenplay at the 2024 Academy Awards. Past Lives was released in 2023 and was directed by Celine Song. The film stars Greta Lee, Teo Yu, and John Majaro. And Past Lives was my favorite film of, I guess it's been 2 years now, of 2023, so it was my favorite film of that year. To me, this was one of those that was like the most obvious that it was going to have a spot on here, because I know some people kind of turned on it or just maybe didn't like it from the get-go, but for me, Past Lives was one of those films that from the opening scene, I was swept away and I was caught up in the story that they were going to tell. That when, it starts off with the two people at the bar. You never see who they are, but they're playing that game where you look at strangers, you watch strangers in public, and you try and guess what their relation to each other is. Or you just kind of like dub over their voice. You make the conversation as if what they would be saying. And so they're playing this game, trying to figure out, oh, what is this connection? And so I was like already hooked, and then the beginning of the film is them as little kids, and I'm hooked on like everything there. And then when it goes to when she moves to New York, and then you get the Skype call section where they kind of communicate in Skype. Like, I'm like, oh, I'm just so bought into this. And it's a film where I was so bought into these two as a character. I was like, they are endgame. Like, they are going to be like the perfect couple. Like, this is what this romance film is all about. Is about these two finding each other after all these years. And then again, I don't want to necessarily spoil exactly how it ends kind of toward the end, but I will say that there is a third character, John Majaro's character, that kind of gets introduced around the midway point. And all of a sudden now you've got this other element here that's in play of all of a sudden now we've got this like love triangle, and it's like, okay, well then what are you rooting for at this point? Is this a film that is trying to get you into a certain, like, it's trying to carry you to rooting for, to break up with the white boyfriend, or is it this film that is trying to be like, okay, well actually he's the bad person? Or is it a film that's saying no one's a bad person in this scenario, it's just, this is just life. Like, sometimes things don't happen, sometimes things don't work, and so it's this film that just kind of poses all of these questions that as you're watching the film, it kind of changes the way that you specifically are analyzing the film, and the way that you're watching it, and the way that you're letting certain scenes and beats kind of carry you emotionally. And really, it truly is just breathtaking to me that the film can kind of carry you through such a wave of emotions. And the final kind of scene, I guess not really a spoiler, kind of a spoiler. The scene, the film kind of ends at the same bar of the opening scene. It kind of is a full circle moment. So you start with these characters being like, oh, what is their relationship? What are these three characters like relation to each other? And then at the end, it's this big conversation, really dissecting and being like, this is what the relation is between all of us, and how does that affect us? And some of the lines specifically in this scene, again, there's one in particular that I don't want to spoil, but because it spoils what's going on really in this final moment. But it's just so, when I heard it the first time in the theaters, it's Teo Yu's character that says it. It cut like a knife. Like, it was so painful and beautiful, and like, tender. Like, there's so many emotions that I had watching this, and this is one that I don't necessarily didn't cry really on this watch. The first watch absolutely broke me. I was really kind of swept away with it and caught up in again the pain and the beauty and the yearning and everything that's going on in this film, while looking at like different moments. I guess one line that I can kind of mention that's not really much of a spoiler really, but another line that's just so romantic in this film is John Majaro says something along the lines, because he's talking to Greta Lee's character, and he says something about when you dream in Korean, and it makes me sad, or something like that. And she's like, oh, why does it make you sad? And he mentions, because you dream in a language I'll never understand. Like, I can't remember exactly. It's something like that. You dream in a language I'll never know, and it makes me feel like you're apart from me, or something. And it's just this line that is, like, again, kind of sad, but so beautiful. And that's really kind of, I think, the best way to just kind of describe this entire film is sad, but really beautiful. Titanic. 101-year-old Rose DeWitt Bucketer tells the story of her life aboard the Titanic, 84 years later. A young Rose boards the ship with her mother and fiancé. Meanwhile, Jack Dawson and Fabrizio De Rossi win third-class tickets aboard the ship. Rose tells the whole story from Titanic's departure through its death on its first and last voyage on April 15, 1912. The film won 11 Oscars at the 1998 Academy Awards, tying it for the most wins all time. It won for Best Picture, Best Director for James Cameron, Best Cinematography, Best Art Direction, Set Direction, Best Costume Design, Best Sound, Best Film Editing, Best Sound Effects Editing, Best Visual Effects, Best Original Song for My Heart Will Go On, and Best Original Score. The film was also nominated for Best Actress for Kate Winslet, Best Supporting Actress for Gloria Stewart, and Best Makeup. Titanic was released in 1997 and was directed by James Cameron. The film stars Leonardo DiCaprio, Kate Winslet, and Billy Zane. Now, to me, this was the film that was most surprising that it made the cut. And it was surprising because I watched this film last year for the very first category I ever did this series for was Best Picture winners, January of last year, and I watched it for that. And I watched it, and I was like, it bumped up from because I think I saw it for the first time in 2020. It was probably 2022, maybe 2023, and then watched it again in. I guess maybe it was 23, and then I watched it again in 24, and again in 25. And so like it's been kind of this once a year tradition, I guess, that I throw on Titanic, and it feels like I kind of each watch I'm inching more and more. I like it a little bit more. I like it a little bit more, and there was something about this watch that when I watched it, it's just like. I don't like this. Like, I love this. This is very beautiful, and I think it's one of those films that I think, for the longest time, you hear, before you see Titanic, you hear about Titanic, and you're like, oh, it's the most romantic movie, and it's this and this, and you have all these notions, and you watch it, and you're like, okay, yeah, it was kind of cool, and it was, there were some moments that were like these highlight moments, but, for the most part, it's kind of corny, or it's sappy, or, whatever if you're trying to just have, like, a negative view of the film, those are the things you're viewing. There was something about this last watch that I was completely won over. Like, it had all the moments that I thought were just kind of either sappy or whatever. Like, I was watching it and I was like, no, this is iconic cinema. This is so romantic. This is so beautiful. The handprint on the car window, the I'm on top of the world, Jack like teaching her how to spit off the boat, like things like that, where it's just like, it's so delightful and charming. Like, it's just completely all of these small moments that maybe on first and second watch I was just kind of like, oh, that's just the film. All of a sudden on this watch, everything was just absolutely just like this heartwarming. Like, it was so beautiful, and it was all just like, no, this really is, again, for the first half or so of this film, like, it is so beautiful and just so romantic. And I think this is the first time, because I think the first couple times I watched Titanic, I was watching it more so with the lens or the mindset of, like, it's a disaster film, and just kind of the second half of the film, when the Titanic goes down. And so I remember the first couple times, like, that was way more of the highlight for me, and you kind of get through the boring romantic stuff to get to the cool ship breaking apart, toward the end. But this watch was completely the opposite for me, where it was like, again, I was loving the romance, loving these characters, loving their story and the decisions that they're making, and her, like, I had completely forgotten about the scene where she kind of goes down below in the deck and is partying with the lower class people, at the bottom, and she's having a grand old time and dancing and drinking, and, like, it's just so I mean, obviously this is the romance, so I'm gonna say romance, and it's gonna get repetitive, but this is just so romantic, watching all of this happen. And to the point where I was so in love with, again, the first half of this film, that when the Titanic stuff starts happening in the second half of the film, I was more devastated than I ever was at any other point rewatching this film, because I was so much more invested in the characters, invested in their story. And again, I know what's going to happen from this point forward, but it was like almost this like optimistic hope of like, because I care about them so much, I'm rooting for something different to happen this time. Which obviously, I mean, this is one of those, I can't really spoil Titanic. Even if you haven't seen it, you know the ending of Titanic. But it kind of comes to its conclusion, and I'm still just was like more heartbroken, I think, on this watch than any other watch of terms of the what happens with this relationship, because I was so invested on this watch. So this is one of those that I would recommend, because again, you've seen it. I would recommend if this is one that maybe if you don't like it, you're probably never gonna. It's never gonna win you over on additional rewatches. But if you're like me and this is one that maybe you were a little like so about, I recommend giving it another rewatch, because maybe it'll do the same thing it did for me, where it just completely won me over on this additional watch. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know down below in the comments what you think of these films, or what your favorite romance films of all time are, what would be in your Letterboxd for. Let me know all of that down below in the comments. And as a reminder, the next month's preview video is already out. I uploaded it a week or so ago, I guess a couple weeks at this point, because I knew this video was coming so late, so I wanted to get ahead of that. So March's video is going to be International Women's History Month, so we're just watching films directed and starring women. That's the highlight of that video. So that video is already out, so go ahead and watch that if you want to see those films that I'm going to be talking about. And then the results video is going to come out in a couple weeks or so for that one, so already moving on pretty quick to the next episode in the series. But again, thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to like this video and then subscribe to the channel so you don't miss that video or any of the other videos that I'll have uploading on my channel, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.